My name is Brooke. I'm a descendant of James Kenneth Olds Sr., and this is our story.
Okay, so
Just see what this.
okay, so so we're here. This is right here. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that it was so close to the road. Is this it? This is it?
My question, it was simply, where are you? I was looking for my ancestor, James Kenneth Olds, as I worked on family genealogy. I wanted to know a little bit more about who he was and where he was. I didn't know where he is buried or much about his life. So in 1997, I mailed a request for vital records to Vermont in hope of finding some sort of record of his birth, anything, his name in a ledger. I still have the no record found receipt that they mailed back to me. The years went by and technology in genealogical research began to advance, and so did my skills as a researcher. And then, by great coincidence, I had a dream which brought me back to this story. Perhaps it was my subconscious still working on the puzzle. But things got interesting. I wrote about the dream in my journal in November 19th, 2017. I write, in the dream, I found myself in a hail of bullets. The dream is playing out in slow motion. I'm dodging the bullets. I see them in midair. It is hellish. Suddenly, my ancestor, James, starts talking to me in real time while I continue to move in slow motion. But it's like we are having a conversation in my head with our voices the overlay of this slow motion event. My great-great-grandfather is telling me that I need to live my life and to stop procrastinating. We talk about life, how precious. And we talk about doing what one wants to do while alive. In the dream, I understand immediately the veracity of his words. As I try not to die so that I might carry on and truly live. What I don't write in my journal, but I can clearly remember, is that this dream took place in the middle of a street. And I kind of recognize the street. I kind of recognize the place, but not the time. The street is a dirt road in Chinatown. And besides the bullets, there's fire everywhere. And explosions, complete chaos. And this conversation amidst it all. After writing the dream down in my journal, I completely forgot about it. I think it must have been a couple months went by, and we're now into January 2018. But because it was the holidays, I haven't written much. Let's see, it's only 1, 2, 3 pages ahead. 3 pages ahead, I write about a newspaper article that I just found. The story is really interesting and it caught my attention. So much so, I wrote the story down in my journal because I didn't want to lose it. The story was written by the Daily Bulletin on April 30th, 1886. I'll read some of the article now. It's entitled Scenes and Incidents. As the fire advanced along the streets, it was preceded by and often overtook an indescribable scene. Through the throng of spectators, the occupants of threatened tenements and shops broke their way, carrying their movable effects to places of safety. Many had wheelbarrows and handcarts, more improvised hand barrows out of doors, blinds, reversed tables, and the like. Bulky articles were carried or dragged according to their weight. Drays were hurrying after loads or moving away heavily laden. From windows and verandas, household goods were thrown into the streets, often striking with the sound of crashing glass or other fragile material. Above all, the roar of flames and an almost constant fusillade of exploding kerosene, ammunition, and fireworks, of one or all of which nearly every shop seemed to carry a large stock. The article goes on to say that my great-great-grandfather's business, the Empire Saloon, corner of Nu'uanu and Hotel Streets, was a total loss. So let's get back to the dream. I don't know how it came to pass that I had this dream. About 2.5 months before I actually read the story printed in 1886 in the newspaper. And the similarities between the two. The fire, the exploding ammunition, fireworks, and kerosene the chaos of it all. It must have been quite a tremendous event for my great grandfather to have gone through. And I think it's pretty special that I had a dream that I was there with him at that time, but in this strange slow motion kind of way where I was moving in slow motion but speaking with him in real time. Let's go back to that day that I went to the cemetery with my cousin and found learned the location rather of the family plot.
Well, I'm back, and that was super fun to spend the afternoon with my cousins. And I learned today exactly where our great-granddad, where our great-great-granddad is buried, or our ancestor is buried. What I also learned, what I didn't realize, is that he's buried in a family plot. And my cousin had a map, and it showed that there are 7 ancestors that are buried there. And I know about a few of them. In fact, I kind of thought that when I started this, that I would search for each one in turn and figure out where in the cemetery each of them is buried, because I didn't expect to find any grave markers that you could read or anything like that. I honestly thought there'd be stones, and there are stones, but what I learned today is that there's one family plot with 7 ancestors in it. That's pretty special. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the archives, the state archives, and I'm going to see if I can go through the documents that they have over the history of that cemetery and find out if I can see the way the plots are situated and why there's a circular depression in the ground that there are 2 small stones that are in the middle of. And I noticed that for other plots that are similar in age, that are marked with a stone, they're in the middle of a circular depression, still in the grass. I thought that was interesting because I was surprised that they all had the same kind of mark in the grass, which seemed almost more recent, but these are graves from over 100 years ago. So anyway, it's just another thing that I'd like to figure out. So the next phase will be the Hawaii State Archives. It was only until recently when I had access to online newspapers that I was able to find his writing, because he wrote a lot of messages. He wrote a lot of letters that were published in Hawaiian newspapers, and So it was great to finally find him, in a sense, and also to read his words and to know his thoughts, and to realize that we are so similar. As a small child, the family then moved to Vermont. It's interesting because his early years had a mixture of sounding like he was quite privileged in many ways with the education that he was receiving, that the family were owner-operators of, I think it's coal. I'm going to say it's mines, but I think it's coal mines. I could be wrong. They had acres of farmland. They were really well-established family in Vermont. And yet, when his father, my great-great-great-grandfather, died in a mining accident, and then his mother passed away, he went straight to live and work in a cotton mill, where, as I understand it, that is where orphans and might find themselves. But he had family still in Vermont, so I'm not sure what the story is or why he went from such a life of privilege to end up working in a cotton mill. And I know this because of a newspaper article that was published upon his death that kind of recapped his life. So I know that's where he spent a majority of his time growing up, and that by the time he was 17 or 18 years old, he decided to strike out on his own. And so by that point, he had become a quite accomplished violin player, and it was, it's my understanding that he took his violin and he set out into the world to make a place for his own. According to that story, that newspaper story, he found himself in New York City, and there was a poster looking for men to work ships, whaling ships, I believe. And he signed up just to do something, I think. It sounds like he seemed to have used it just as a mode of transportation. And he got on that ship, and he made his first voyage, his first crossing to the Hawaiian Islands, arriving here in 1856. He did some more travels, and then, he left again and did some more travels, but he found his way back to the islands, and he never left. And it sounds like, from what I understand, that he never wanted to be on a ship like that again. And he made his way here in Hawaii by playing his violin for money and performing around town. And I have been able to find that he purchased a liquor license in whatever that date was. And the liquor license led from selling whiskey mash, to another liquor, to eventually opening up his own saloon in Chinatown here on Oahu. The name of his saloon was called the Empire Saloon. And he eventually had a acquired an estate in Kaneohe, that he brought in plants from all over. It was so beautiful that he would open the gates every day and people would come onto the property just to enjoy its beauty and to picnic and things like that. So the name, the Empire Saloon, I don't know where it came from. I think that the way I understand it anyway is that my ancestor bought a liquor license that was called Empire House, and from that eventually it became the saloon. When I look back in history around that time, there were lots of, across the nation, other empire saloons and houses, and they were, as I understand it, businesses that were in the architectural style, the empire architectural style. So that's where I think the name came from. So the Empire Saloon was rebuilt after that first fire, and it went on to have a long and successful time. It was a landmark in the community, and it went through iterations of being rebuilt for various reasons. I haven't answered yet the question of, did I heed the wisdom, heed the advice from the dream? And I've been thinking about it, and I've decided that I'm going to let you answer that question. But before I go, thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching. And until the next time, ahui ho.